Metropolitan Sava of the Antiochian Church gave a very good, dense talk about converts to Orthodoxy in America. And David Erhan, who's a layman in Turkey under the Ecumenical Patriarchate, made a long-form critique of Metropolitan Sava's talk. And I'm going to pick out a few points that David made. And we'll listen to David talk for a little under 2 minutes, and then I'll make a comment.
I'd like to begin with the first paragraph. For centuries, the New World has drawn successive waves of migration. Most of the 20th century, there was a modest Orthodox presence that remained largely confined to Orthodox communities across North America, especially in the big cities. So he's talking about immigrants, and Orthodoxy came to be known as the Eastern Church because of the immigrants, Greeks, Slavs, Syrians, etc. And it's very interesting that he knows rather than by their apostolic faith. So I think this is a very positive, actually, statement, because he knows like the most important thing is the faith, right? So he's kind of pointing out that being characterized by like the ethnic community that the church comes from is not something that he'd really like. And to their credit, especially, I see a lot of like Greek people, like really like Orthodox people, Orthodox Greek people, like they like to emphasize this point, that the church is Orthodox, right? Like it's Orthodox first and foremost. Of course, there's a history, but that's the primary thing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that do it the other way, like the exact opposite. And I think that's a huge issue. But I think that's more of an issue in the old world. I don't think it's a super big issue in the United States. You don't have a lot of like, it's starting to becoming phased out. It's still a thing, but patriotism and kind of like the acknowledgement of the earthly culture has to be ordered in the correct way. So we can't go to the extreme opposite and say it's completely useless. Like obviously, there's neither Greek nor Jew, as Saint Paul says. But well, hey, Saint Paul does speak about Greeks and Jews. So there is a level in which they do exist. So that has to be recognized in a healthy way.
So the main takeaway is that David's talking about how ethnic identity can predominate over religious identity. And in this next clip, a little over 2 minutes long, he's going to further talk about where that might lead.
And he cites his predecessor, Metropolitan Philip. Oh yeah, I heard this quote: "The best kept secret in America. Orthodoxy is the best kept secret in America." Right? This is a quote. So I want to give my thoughts, because it's less like Metropolitan Philip probably meant good, right? But the way it is used, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts in the chat about this. I don't like this quote. Again, the way Metropolitan Philip probably meant is that Orthodoxy is such a treasure, right? It's such a significant treasure, and it really fits well with the United States religiously, but it's just people don't know about it. So that's kind of the meaning that he had. But a lot of people, let me just get the attention to myself. A lot of people have used this in the sense that, oh, we're the best kept secret in America, and that's a good thing. It's like they were some part of a secret club. I really got that. I don't like to say the word why, but yeah, I got that. I get that vibe every time I heard it when I was in the United States, when I hear it in social media. I hear this really often. We Orthodox, we don't like go around and try to preach and evangelize to people. We are America's best kept secret, right? We focus on ourselves, and they'll quote the Saint Seraphim of Sorrow. Like I'm not even gonna quote, because everyone has probably heard it so many times. Everyone already knows it. Even non-Orthodox have probably heard of the famous, uh, be holy, and 1,000 souls around you will be saved, right? And people have used this as if it's okay to just stay where we are. Oh yeah, we have some few special converts, right? We are the special converts. We joined in. Now we're in a comfortable situation. We can just sit and just, opine about how we are the special people. We've encountered a huge secret, and we just don't tell people to get into it when they're not ready.
So David's pointing to a sense of exclusivity that can exist among cradle Orthodox. Now, he's not making this point, but I'm just going to add. When converts join the Orthodox Church, they can pick up that sense of exclusivity as well and be just as David says, imagining that they're part of a boutique enclave church. So anyway, this third clip coming up is really long. I'm letting David talk at length. It's over 6 minutes long, but he's going into the history of things, and he's got a really good explanation about evangelization or the lack thereof.
The Church of Immigrants has ended. The center of evangelization has begun. Very important. Orthodoxy's mission is no longer primarily geographical from Antioch to America, but existential. It's a very key point, because, and I think does he talk about? No. All right. Because there's a lot of background to this, right? Especially after, I will say, the 14th century, the Orthodox world started to enter into a survival mode. Before that, it was concerned with evangelization, right? It cared about evangelizing to people, or the Western Church, right, before the schism, was evangelizing. The Orthodox Church in the Roman Empire was evangelizing. That's how Russia became Orthodox, and evangelizing various different parts of the population. And after, I will say again, the 13th, 14th century, due to geopolitical circumstances, mainly the decline of the Roman Empire and the rise of the Ottoman Turks, and them being captive under the Ottoman administration, which has its entire story, really changed the mindset of a lot of Orthodox Christians, right? In whether you look at Alexandria, Jerusalem, like Antioch, like the Middle East, Anatolia, back then, before they were genoktonokted. Greek speakers know what I'm talking about. Before they were genoktonokted, and people in the Balkans, even, it was a situation of survival mode. And a big reason why is because, as a Christian, you were not allowed to evangelize in Islamic lands, because according to Sharia, if a Muslim converts to a different religion, then they are right, and the person who made them convert is also, and if it's a community that made this happen, then that community as a whole, right? So they had to walk a very tight rope, and like, as a geopolitical reality, evangelization just became impossible. And you have to think, I mean, it's really it's really crazy how the methodology of preventing evangelization has been devised by the devil, right? Anyways, and this lasted for a very long time. And of course, you had Russia, you had missions from Russia, and this is why Russians still typically have a mission culture, right? You see this in different parts of the world. I mean, maybe not necessarily in the United States, but actually in different parts of the world, there's still the mission culture that a lot of Russians have. But the rest of the world didn't share that until very recently, until the liberation of the Balkans. And over time, after the world wars, this started to develop more and more. So with a lot of people, with a lot of Orthodox people, like if you go to, for example, an Islamic country, they have a lot of zeal about like converting people. Like they really want to convert people, right? Like we need to invite people to Islam, and they have all of these, like they devise all of these various different strategies, and even like thinking about the smallest points, like, okay, how can we make them like Islam more? Okay, we have to focus on this, we have to focus on, like, they're thinking about all of these small details to make Islam more appealing, which is why a lot of like people who will even listen to you, the moment you start to explain why you think Orthodoxy is convincing, they'll say, wait, bro, are you trying to evangelize me? Like, because they know that this is a tactic that they themselves do, right? So anyways, I mean, it's not like the United States. Like in the United States, you can argue, you can debate, and people think it's normal, right? It's Like they will say, well, yeah, of course you will explain why your religion makes sense, and of course we're going to listen, and if it makes sense, we'll agree, and if it doesn't, we'll disagree. But in different parts of the world, people don't think this way, right? Especially in Islamic, like they think all of these different things to convince people. But then you look at Orthodox countries, and obviously it's good in the sense that they don't have ulterior motives. That's really good. But it's also not so good in the sense that they don't have any expectations. A lot of these people, as I said, have absolutely zero expectation. They don't really expect anything, right? They kind of just say, oh, you're interested in Orthodox? That's interesting. Why would you be interested? And like you have to like tell them like, oh, I want to become Orthodox. It's like why? Like they won't say, wow, that's excellent. Wow, that's great. They will say, why? But it's completely foreign to their mindset. And I used to not like it at all. I used to get kind of frustrated of this one, but now I understand. It's because it's history. It's actually history, right? This is part of it's history has shaped their mindset in a bad way, unfortunately, and it takes time for a lot of these people to kind of I would like to assume these are good meaning people that I'm talking about. That needs to take time. And especially, this is why like a lot of these people coming into the United States are adapting quite quickly. This is why, but you still have a lot of people who will talk about, converts, they don't know anything. I know the most. And, the people saying this, like, they don't even read the Bible. They don't go to church. They only go on feast days. They just know, like they say that they know is like some stories that their grandmother told them, right? That's what they're talking about. And they're talking about, converts, we have no need for you. We're Greek or we're Russian, we're Romanian. Like, what do you like? You guys can have your own thing. Just stay away from us. Like, kind of. And obviously, that's very negative. But those are it's a minority on the internet. It's not a real thing, I think.
David quite rightly highlights how, for about 600 years, evangelization simply wasn't possible. But he could have gone back further in time and referred us to the mission to the Slavs of Saints Kirill and Methodius, translating the service books into Slavic languages. Similarly with Saint Nicholas of Japan, translating the books of the church into Japanese, for example. Anyway, we'll move on to the next clip, and David's going to talk to us again about modern parish life.
People like Cradle Orthodox, I think, have a huge duty to at least help the integration process of a lot of the converts into the Orthodox faith, but in a correct way. Because when I say integration, it's not like, oh well, you got to do these Russian traditions and know about Russian no, not that kind of stuff, but integrate them into the parish. And if you're in the United States, that integration, number one key thing about that integration, you speak English. Okay, you speak English. You speak the language of the country you're in, not the country you're from. You can speak the language of the country you're from when you're at home, but speak the language of the country you're in. Please do that, right? That's the most important thing that you can have in any part of the world, right? If you're in Japan, speak Japanese. If you're, I don't know, if you're in Uganda, speak whatever 40 languages that they have in Uganda. If you're in Brazil, speak Portuguese or Spanish to joke with the people. Or if you're in Spain, speak Portuguese. Jokes aside, I mean, speak in their language, right? This is very important, and people need to do that because, like, you're in the United States or you're in Spain, you're in that country, and you're in the church of that country, and the people of that country are coming to you. Worst thing you can do is push them away by just keeping things in your own language. And it's not just prayer, right? Like, not just prayer, but just kind of, coffee hour. Like you're sitting at a table with a couple of other people, and all these people are speaking Greek to each other. Well, you don't know any Greek, so I guess you got to learn it. The truth is that the Orthodox world in general lived for centuries under persecution, which made the preservation of the faith and the continuity of Orthodox existence the priority of overshadowing all else. The prohibition of Christian evangelization under threat of death made mission entirely forgotten. Thus, many Orthodox lost the experience of dealing with converts. That's the point that I was making, yeah. since they were unable to evangelize for centuries and forgot that great task. Their indifference to evangelization was further deepened in America by living for a long time as ethnic community churches. I'm so thankful to Metropolitan Saba for calling this into attention. Yeah, exactly. Orthodox should not be indifferent to evangelization. Orthodox should not have the attitude of, we're not trying to tell people to be. No, you should be telling people to become Orthodox. Okay, let's be real. If it's possible for you, and someone has that, invite them to the church. Tell them, look, you want to experience something, come to the Orthodox church, and if you have questions, we can answer. Right? You don't have to be pushy about it, but invite them, get them to the church, get them to the community, get them to be interested in Orthodoxy, to see it, to experience it, talk about it to them. Right? Do these things. You got to do these things. You can't just I've heard so many bad stories. I'm not going to tell about them. Trust me, I am currently a treasure trove of horrible experiences, like the exact opposite of the way things are supposed to, but I'm not going to talk about them because I think it's bad in form. But I do feel the need to tell you that this is a problem. I'll tell you that much. And it's a problem on the clerical level too. That's what I'm trying to get at.
David's pretty clear about using the local vernacular in church, regardless of the ethnic makeup of the community around that church. As a side note, I'm wondering, I don't know which part of Turkey he's in, but I'm wondering if his services are in Turkic or in Greek. Anyway, coming up next is a little over 3 minutes. It's purely for entertainment. We're going off topic. This is a sidebar. Just enjoy. It's got nothing to do with our talk, but I thought David was making a really interesting point that only he would know, being from the part of the world that he's in, and that I would never have known had he not told me.
Fundamentalism, in its negative, rigid sense, I don't really know what he means by fundamentalism. I'm sorry, but I hope this is expanded because it's a very loaded term, and loaded terms are not defined properly. In my opinion, has also increased because of much that is available online. It always feels like he's this is a term that's kind of throwing a bone to the more liberal elements. Look, I'm talking about fundamentals, whatever you think fundamentalism means. It's that's kind of what it's. But from my experience, Orthodox bishops don't do this too often. You know who does this kind of stuff? Actually, the ecumenical patriarchate. They're very intelligent. The ecumenical patriarchate is very intelligent. For example, I want to talk about this briefly. There's one recent thing Patriarch Bartholomew said. It's tradition is not conservative, it's creative, right? That statement from Patriarch Bartholomew. And everyone thought he was and he's he praised Vatican II. It's Vatican II is really good, especially etc. etc. And a lot of people thought that he's basically oh yeah, conservatism bad and being traditional is bad. When Patriarch Bartholomew said, look, Patriarch Bartholomew is indeed, he's very, let's say, the kindest way of saying this, he's very diplomatic, too diplomatic with the Roman Catholics, and that's the genuine point of criticism. But I don't know. From the culture where I'm in, it seemed more like he was saying, yeah, you guys as creators really, man, you really are excellent examples at this. It's kind of like a Byzantine irony. It's yeah, this is really good. I wonder why we're not doing it. Because he's the man in the driver's seat, right? But when you look at Orthodoxy as kind of acted, is it creative in the sense of Vatican II? If you look at the Council of Crete, in a way, yes, it's power grabby. But if you look at the internal politics, you will not believe how even how they are willing to use even the smallest canonical violation against you. You'll not believe. So maybe it's because I do know a little bit about that space that most people in the United States don't. That to me, that statement was like a complete irony, I will say. So it's a Byzantine irony. Um, and the funny part is he probably does believe tradition has to be creative. It's just that his definition of creative is nothing like, I don't think it's much like Vatican II, but it's power grabby, right? Let's say. And it's still close to Vatican II, because what you see in the Council of Crete, I don't even want to call it a council, because I think it's not, I don't think it's reflecting, it doesn't reflect Orthodox teaching, and it can contradict canons. But again, these people, they're really good at talking about canonical violations when it suits them, right? So I said a bit too much. Anyways,
Well, I thank David for alerting me to the fact that irony can be used in diplomatic discourse, and that words might not always mean what they seem to at face value. Now, David's going to continue in this last clip's about 2 minutes long on his theme regarding English in church.
various reasons bring new converts to the Orthodox Church, but really it is due to the Church's deliberate work to. Yeah, this is he's. I really appreciate this part. Yeah, he's honest in acknowledging. Look, people don't become Orthodox because our bishops and clergy are doing such a good job, right? It's because the nature of Orthodoxy is what brings them. So we need to use that. And integration of the in Christ converts is a problem because of lack of spiritual fathers, and also because of languages, right? Some parents do not use English. This is a problem. If you're in the United States, use English. Every single person in your church is Greek or Russian or Romanian or whatever. I don't care. You're going to use English, because you know what? You might speak that language, but one day someone is going to come in through that door, and it's the only church that they can go to. They're going to go through that door. They're going to look around. They're going to say, "This is nice, but I don't know what the heck these people are talking about." And they're just their own. They're just their own thing. So I guess this is just not for me. And they're going to turn back and go away. And then, look, I'm not saying that because I'm like we. This is not just to maximize convert. Um, these people are going to end up being judged, right? That person who left, he's going to be judged. You for not accommodating him properly when you could. I mean, it's scary, right? It's scary. That's why being clergy is a scary job. That's why people didn't want to be. That's why, against a great theologian, he was kicking and screaming. He's like, "Don't make me bishop! Don't make me bishop!" Because he was aware that once he was made bishop, things were going to be incredibly difficult. And Congress find it very difficult to follow the services. Huge issue. Especially, by the way, here's a double point. Their services are catechetical. So you're talking about like insufficient catechism. If you don't have services in English, and if you don't allow the converts for them to follow the services, you're missing on the chance to catechize them even further. It's a serious problem.
David's last point, I think, was quite excellent in that the services of the church are in themselves catechetical. Right, pause. So we'll summarize David's points here. The first two videos he was talking about in the diaspora, the enclave that ethnic communities have formed, and their churches, local churches, being part of that. Then he moved on to the historical aspect of the loss of Orthodox evangelization. And then after that little sidebar, he returned to his emphasis on the English language being integral, essential in the churches in the English-speaking world. So now I'll ask a few questions and I'll proffer a few of my own ideas. It seems that David and also Metropolitan Sava do seem to think that these ethnic parishes in the diaspora should be less ethnic now and should be more local and open to their local environment and the language of their local environment. One question would be, well, should that necessarily be the case? What about purely Orthodox mission parishes that are entirely made of converts, generated entirely by converts? So that's a model, isn't it? So let's think about that. So the people who think about that strongly are those people who would like in the West to establish, for example, if they're in the UK, we want the British Orthodox Church. If they're in New Zealand, we want the New Zealand Orthodox Church. If they're in the Pitcairn Islands, they want the Pitcairn Orthodox Church. Almost as a self-invented thing by the sounds of it. And I've met people with that kind of idea. All right. Well, I don't think that's correct. I don't think David would say that that's correct, nor Metropolitan Sava would say that's correct, because David himself, and if you listen to his long-form video, he said we have to show the faith. So to learn the faith, you need to be shown it. And I got this from monastic life. You learn monastic life by being shown it in person by other monks. That's how you pick it up. And I would say that this is how we learn the Orthodox faith, is that's by joining in liturgical worship with other people who understand the Orthodox faith, and they pass it on to us almost osmotically. Right, now there are more questions. Something that's not going to happen in larger urban areas is that ethnic parishes will be overwhelmed and by the influx of those new Orthodox who don't belong to the ethnic group, whereas in smaller urban locations, just through sheer critical mass, numbers can drop so low among the host ethnic community that they're easily overwhelmed numerically. Now, what can we say about this? Well, I would say it's a statistical problem, and the presence of new Orthodox who aren't members of that ethnic group aren't actually a confound to the statistic. Any group is probably going to be in trouble whenever it drops below a certain number, a certain critical mass, regardless of other groups that join it or are adjacent to it. So I would say that's what I think of that. So to conclude, I think that David and Metropolitan Sava are not ignorant of that statistical effect, and they both seem to indicate that, yep, ethnic parishes should be open to people outside of their ethnic group, and if it does occur that host ethnic numbers drop enough and that non-host ethnic numbers increase enough, that's not a problem, because both Metropolitan Sava and David Erhan stress that it's actually the faith which is the important thing here, and not the ethnic identity. Now, we've got to qualify that. They're talking about parishes. They're not talking about community centres or cultural centres or ethnic clubs. They're talking about parishes in the church. And that's why I think, in their view, it makes the most sense that the faith should be continued and should be passed on through this historical moment in the diaspora. through this new form of evangelization that the internet is affording everybody. That's it.